who are these parents who want more of a say in their kids' education. Parents are essentially a new special interest group when it comes to K-12 education. And I don't think they're going away anytime soon because they felt powerless in 2020. And they're going to push to make sure they never feel powerless like that ever again. And it's not a good idea to label parents who just want more of a say in their kids' education as domestic terrorists. I mean, they just went overboard and let their masks slip when it comes to the National School Board Association.
I mean, imagine all the shit you can get away with until you piss off a mom that's concerned. Right. I mean, I'm not even talking about just human beings. You can do a lot of stuff around this Hank the Tank, this bear that's going down into LA and fucking eating people's food and shit, or wherever the fuck it is, somewhere in California. That bear will probably run away if you come near it. You turn that bear into a mom and her cubs are around, and that bear will fuck you up, even if you're not even a real threat, if it thinks you're a threat. Now, give yourself another 150,000 years of evolution, and you've got a pissed off mom who's like, "What did you say to my kid?" You know what I mean? It's like a biological instinct to protect their children, and that, it's not to anybody's credit, to all of our collective faults. We've been asleep at the wheel when it comes to education. We've trusted the government. We've trusted this no child left behind bullshit and all the other stupid fucking government programs that have come out over the last 40 years in education. And, we've paid the price for it, but it is heartening now to see parents paying attention again.
Well, I think for a long time, parents just, they thought that their kids were in good, quote unquote, public schools, just based on the state rankings. Maybe they were in an A-rated school or a blue ribbon school, like in Texas, or maybe their kids were just getting good grades. They were on the honor roll and they had great STAR tests, standardized testing results. But now parents, with the silver lining or unintended benefit of the remote instruction, was that parents saw another dimension of school quality, which happened to be whether the curriculum aligned with their values, which, I think most parents, when they heard these things happening, they just thought it was something that wasn't very widespread. And they thought, no way this is happening in my kid's A-rated school. And I think parents had a light bulb go off. And so these parents, again, are going to keep pushing forward. They're never going to forget what happened in 2020. And they're going to keep pushing forward because they care about their kids more than anybody else. And that's just the reality. So politicians should listen to parents as opposed to the union bosses like Randy Weingarten.
Yeah, I don't know why they would.
Their kids more than
I don't know why they would listen to anything that she has to say at all in the first place. But I guess that's just the nature of the power dynamic. Now you've had a lot of successes. Who are some of the people you've run into that are fucking problems? I know Utah just rejected the school choice, the Hope Scholarship thing.
Yeah, we had trouble in Utah. Didn't pass through the House. You had more Republicans voted against the bill than Democrats, which is a shame because the latest Morning Consult polling in Utah found that over 3/4 of school parents in Utah support the funding following the child in the form of an education savings account. That's what they voted on. The thing is, even in deep red states, you have the unions playing in primary elections. So they pick someone who looks like a Republican on every other issue except for education. And so they pick that candidate and try to get them elected. We've seen a similar problem in the Texas House. I mean, look at the Texas primary result. 88% of Texas Republican primary voters, over 1.8 million or 1.6 million voted yesterday, supporting the money following the child to any public or private school that works for them. Yet Texas does not have any private school choice programs. One such bill passed through the Texas Senate in 2017. It was Senate Bill 3, but then it didn't have the votes in the Texas House, even though the Texas House is a supposedly Republican House of Representatives. So, you have these groups that push in the primaries for establishment types who protect the monopoly.
Sure, yeah, that's how it always goes. It's very easy for people who are conservative or who care about these particular issues to think that it's right versus left, and that's just not the case. I mean, it's been for a long time. There have been the legislature here in Texas has been Republican for as long as Texas has existed. Same thing with Utah, by the way. Two of the more solidly red state legislatures that exist, and it's two of the primary locations in the United States who've had the opportunity to do these things and have rejected them consistently.
So Utah has a tax credit scholarship program, but what they were pushing for this year, the Hope Scholarship, would have been much more expansive. It would have been true school choice. And look, the reality is the National Republican Party platform has school choice explicitly listed on it. The Texas Republican Party platform and many other red states have school choice listed. You look at the Texas Republican primary voter result from yesterday, 88% support, yet Texas still doesn't have it because of the power dynamics at play. Again, even in red states, you have people who say they support parental rights and education, but then when it really comes down to it, they'll block it. And the problem right now in Texas is the House of Representatives. I think that's similar in Georgia. Georgia has some tax credit scholarship programs, at least, which are a form of private school choice. But there was some issues in Georgia where the Speaker of the House, Dave Ralston, killed a bill that would have been much more expansive. And I think the Senate wasn't the problem there either. It was the House of Representatives. And you'll hear these Republicans in rural areas in particular who will say, it's because my constituents don't want it. I'm in a rural area. But before we got on the call, I was actually looking up some of the most rural districts in Texas, for example, and just looking up, the support on the poll. If what they were saying was true, then you'd see lower support in those areas. But actually, I found in the fifth most rural district, for example, in Texas, it started with a C. I don't remember the name of it, but they had 97% support on Prop 9 for school choice in Texas. So it's a bunch of baloney, the arguments that they're saying. They're just finding any excuse that they can to side with the monopoly to go against parents.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's how it's going to be. I mean, it's the same thing you see with the trucker convoy in Canada. They find two jackasses that have like some kind of racist flag or some shit, like, oh, they're all racist. Like, okay, so 2 people out of 10,000. That's not even a percent. We should at least get to 1% before we start monolithing people as a certain thing. Now, this all sounds great to me. School choice. I like the idea that parents as groups have the ability to flex this kind of power. It's important. I mean, they ultimately, somebody made it a logo on a shirt. I don't remember who it was, but it was something like, I don't co-parent my child with the government, basically, which is a good thing to say. I do have, just to play devil's avocado here. How do you protect the institution of primary education? And I don't mean the institution of public primary education. I just mean in general primary education, because it's evolved a lot over the years. It used to be that you learned the 3 R's, which only one of them starts with a goddamn R, but you learned the 3 R's from your parents at home, and all the more advanced shit you would learn, from a specialist teacher somewhere else. And the teaching day was much shorter because people were fucking farming and doing whatever else. But and it's evolved quite a bit from there. And obviously we're in a administrative bloat / mission creep era right now, where over the last 40 years we're just getting worse and worse. But how do you protect the institution of primary education from groups of what I would call bad actors, like ignorant fucking groups of people, or who they don't want their kids learning certain things that might be necessary, historical or whatever, or they want to reintroduce like religion into classrooms or whatever, because that's coming, right? At some point, there's going to be areas around the country that do stupid shit. Now, whenever you're planning a big move like that, when you're crowdsourcing power, you always have to worry about bad actors inside of that power. It's the hallmark of writing good legislation, actually, is you write it so that it can't be taken advantage of by assholes. And I wonder what safeguards there are from your perspective in school choice that prevent shit like that from happening.
Yeah, I'll just start out by saying we don't want to make perfect the enemy of the good, because there are bad actors in the government-run school system. And so we shouldn't reject giving parents options just because some parents might make a bad decision.
Of
For
course.
example, you might say, oh, well, with food stamps, what if they use it nefariously? Do we take away that option from every single family? Or even without food stamps, there might be some parents who choose the wrong food for their kids, and that would be a problem. So we got to have everybody assigned to a government grocery store where the government official gives you a bag of groceries because some parents might not make the right decision. So I think even if there are some mistakes that might happen from giving parents choice, which to be clear, a lot of families already do have choice if they have the money to do so. But even then, there are safeguards in place with things like education savings accounts. For example, you might be worried that, well, there's these education savings accounts, and what if they go and spend the money on their favorite restaurant or whatever? They're not educating the kid. So they do have written into the law that the funding has to be used on approved education providers.
Right.
So you can't just, from what I can tell, you can't just use the funding and say, I'm homeschooling and I'm just going to pay myself a salary with 4 kids, 15,000 a piece, 60 grand a year. And what if I just don't educate them, for example?